Hey folks, this is the SPY report for SPY, IWM, and the Qs. Looking at the 1 hour chart for SPY, we've had a big steep pop in the fast SMI. Shows us right there, slow SMI is pretty non-responsive, so we really want to watch out for that. We can still see that selling is in higher volume than buying, and has been for a bit. This is no different last hour of the day, but that, typically is one of those things that happens. So what is it that we're trying to do? Well, I think that we have come in. You can see that we came in at 38.2. I did call for a bounce. It did bounce. Now it's coming into this region of support. This morning we have a little bit of a pre-market down gap, and so probably going to come into the pivot today. Fed minutes being released, and that's going to be a little bit important. But if we come in to the prior day's pivot, which is what this will be, and we hold the region, this is an area to take an aggressive bounce, right? If not, we'll be back down here and potentially will give us a lower low. This is really going to tell us what's going to happen. The breakout above here, of course, going to give us some nice upside action on our way to test this or the top of the gap. Probably the top of the gap, if indeed it does hold. All right, if we fail this region, this fib will be next, but what we want to pay attention to is this the end of a mildly short pullback? That's a 38.2%. Remember, 61.8 is the average retracement of a wave in formation. All right, so that being said, that's what we want to look at. Slope still expanding, moving averages expanding away from each other, so momentum is still strong to the downside. We can see that with this slow SMI pegged in the trending zone there. Mildly bullish action because we began below the pivot, ran to above resistance level 1, and then failed, but still held the midline between the pivot and resistance level 1. So that is mildly bullish movement. Taking a look at the IWM, there's nothing mildly bullish about this one, right? That's very bullish because it began well below the pivot and ended above R1 at the midline between R1 and R2, but notice this. It's completed its wave, 61.8, pulling back, and now this is a new wave. I don't know what that wave is, but certainly does look a lot more than 61.8. And then this right here is a topping event. Now, in the end, here's a high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and this also is a lower high. So we've got to get up and out over these levels before we can say, yes, we are in the clear, we've got upside momentum. And again, the ultimate test will be into the gap, right? We're going to be looking at the top of the gap. Now there's a lot of congestion over here, a lot of wicks, but looks to me like a test of 103 might very well be on the horizon for this one. It still is expanding. Moving averages are still expanding. Formation still strong. Notice the steep action here. And we do have a pre-market pullback. If it comes into the 101.78 area, it ought to make a pretty good long. It's very, very interesting. A lot more bullish action here today. See, notice how different this looks to SPY, right? Looks quite a bit different. Oops. All right, but a very nice pattern here. Sideways action. It should break and then come back to the top. Look for that megaphone to develop. That looks like a megaphone is going to develop right there. All right, but notice what I'm talking about here. Yes, some bullish action But look at how much greater it is right here. I mean, that's really quite significant, the difference. For the Qs, this one's been quite sideways. Again, Qs are getting ready to do something big. Don't know what it is, but above 76.20 or so. Yeah, 76.24, it should run straight up to the top of this gap. If it loses this baseline, 75.31, there is more downside momentum on the horizon. All right, that's really all we can say about this because it is so congested. We have an absence of momentum here in a lot of spaces. SMI sitting near zero. And we've got the 50 and the 200 getting closer together, not farther apart, but the 30 and the 50 are still expanding. So the bottom line is this is very messy. Very, very messy. We only want to talk about this on the edges, right? And you could take it at 76.03, knowing that 76.13 to 76.15, you could get a little trouble. But if it recaptures the 200 here and gets up above this noise, I think it's worth it at 75.90. Right? Aggressively, if it comes down to the pivot and bounces above this midline, you could take it above 75.70. It's all about the formation, and right now, formation's pretty ugly. Right? I have no idea what's going on here, and when I can't tell, I won't trade inside of the noise. Right? It's just not worth it to me. I don't want to assume that risk. All right? Hey, good luck trading today.